Hey guys, what's up? There is a pretty cool series on Netflix right now called Wynonna Earp. And I think this was originally a sci-fi TV show. And I don't know how many seasons is in it, but it's really, really interesting and it's a different spin on your regular demon hunter TV show. And even though it's a TV show, I think it looked really pretty legitimate. Like it looked more like a sci-fi original series. I mean, a Netflix original series than a sci-fi TV show. So Wynonna Earp is basically, she's the great granddaughter of Wyatt Earp, the gunslinger. And it's sort of a Western, but it's not really a Western. It's more like a supernatural demon flick. But she goes and she lives in a town called Purgatory where it's like infested by demons. All of the demons are in that area. And she's got Wyatt Earp's gun, which is this like big gunslinger Western kind of gun, like, you know, like 6-shooter barrel, a revolver and whatever. And it's the only gun that can take down the demons and bring them back to hell. Because like if they get shot with any other gun, they just go down and then they just resuscitate after a while. They revive and they become demons again. But the demons, they look like people and you really can't tell who's a demon and who's a person. Other than the really, really evil, and they like doing evil, violent shit to people and stuff like that. And there's basically like the leader of all the demons, who's this guy. He sort of looks more like he's pimped out and he's in like this like fur coat or whatever it is. And he's like the head of the demons. And there's other like demons and other beings like witches and other powerful magicians and sorcerers and things like that. But I'm into a few episodes in, like half the first season basically. And it's interesting because it's still building. Like I really still don't know where this series is going. I don't know what's going to happen in the series, which is cool because it's like a slow to put together sort of series where you don't really know what the future of the series holds, and it just keeps going and going and going. And so it starts off with Wynonna Earp, she's pretty cool. She's a cool chick, and she's got her sister, and she's got like someone else like in her family and whatever it is, and they basically have this saloon in Purgatory. It's not in Purgatory, but the town is called Purgatory. And the demons have to stay in Purgatory, and there's this curse surrounding her and the demons and the whole town that they're in. They can't leave that town. And she tries to like basically exterminate all of the living demons that are running around their town, because they just try to kill people. They just try to kill everybody. So they need to be exterminated. And so there's this, all of a sudden there's a detective that comes down who he says he's like from a paranormal, like a government paranormal investigating agency, where they want to really, their agenda is to take down this whole, the whole group of demons and the main person that's in charge of all the demons. They want to take them all down, but they really don't know how to do it. You know, it's just like sort of a government agency that doesn't really know how to do things and what to do them. So he deputizes Wynonna Earp so that she can help him take down all of these demons and get rid of them. You know, and it's really cool. There's a lot of magic, wizardry. There's a witch, very powerful witch. There's an old Western guy who is like, he was a friend of, it's not much of a spoiler, but he was a friend of Wyatt Earp's. He was his friend, basically. And he's still around, he's still alive, because he made a deal with the witch, and the witch gave him like extra life. I don't know if she made him immortal, but she did give him like the ability to survive and live all of these years. And so he's after her because she basically like imprisoned him in a well that he couldn't get out of for like 100 years. And so he wants to take revenge on this witch. And there's constantly all of this like drama going around where new characters pop up new storylines pop up, different things start to happen in the story. Things go well, things go badly. There's a little bit of a romance story. There's some romance going on, which is cool. I think every really good movie, if you look at like every single good movie, there's some romance in it. Like whatever movie it was, Avatar had romance. Forrest Gump had romance. Like every movie had romance in it that was good. It just like every single movie. Like if it's a good movie, chances are it had romance in it. Back to the Future, romance. And it wasn't the main part of the movie. It's not like the movie's about romance, but it's just got romance things in the movie. They just do. Like it seems like 80% of all good movies have some kind of romantic plot line that's intertwined in the movie. And this is cool because it feels more like a Netflix original series kind of quality stuff. I don't know how many seasons it is because Netflix doesn't really show you. I guess they showed you at some point, but they don't show you like how many seasons you're into it while you're watching it, because they'll only show you like the season that you're watching and then the episodes that season and stuff. I guess you could like, look at it, like you can kind of like turn it off and then look at the information about the show, but I don't know. I didn't know if I was gonna like this show. I didn't think I was gonna like sort of like a Western thing kind of series going on. But even though it's Western and it happens in a Western town, it happens in Middle America, it happens like it's in a Wild West place, like people are still wearing cowboy hats, there's sheriffs, there's saloons, there's like ranches, and there's like cattle and horses, and people are still riding horses, and it's like people are planting, there's farmers there. It's a old like Western town in America, and then it becomes like this Wild West stuff, elements that come out of it because of the guy who I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to spoil it any more than I already did. There's a Western dude who was like back in the Old West. He was a big gunslinger, and so he basically surfaces in the present to help Wynonna Earp take down these demons that are basically cursed. It's a family curse or something that brings these demons after her, and she's cursed to constantly have to fight with these demons who are always coming after her and stuff like that. So it's a real cool show. It's supernatural, but I've never seen a show like Supernatural that's also like demonic, like Supernatural, but it's also a Western. But honestly, it's not really a Western, because if you look at Westerns are like, they're just like, they're either old town Westerns, which is like the old Wild West of America, or they're like modern Westerns, where it's like modern Western towns. Mostly Westerns are old West, old Wild West, like with actual gunslingers, and like in Back to the Future, where Marty goes into the past and he's in the Western town in the 1800s. And so it's sort of like that. It's sort of like in Back to the Future 3, where Marty goes into an old Western town. The movie wasn't a Western, but it took place in a Western town. And that's what happens in this movie. It's like, it's not a Western, but it happens in a Western town with Western people. It's about old Wyatt Earp. It's about his friends that were with him. It's a supernatural flick where there's ghosts, there's demons, it's violent. There's like mass murderers, there's serial killers. There's like Jack the Ripper, I think, is one of the demons. His name is Jack, and you can only think that it must be Jack the Ripper, because also Jack the Ripper was also around in the 1800s or something like that, though it was in England, but he could have taken the boat over to England and been around then. And so it's just interesting that one of the demonic killers, like, he says his name is Jack, meaning like the first thing you think of, oh, Jack the Ripper, yeah, that's who he is, So it's got Jack the Ripper, which I think is, they don't really call him Jack the Ripper, but they do kind of like have this connotation when he is Jack the Ripper. And there's lots of like cool stuff. It's a very cool movie. There's like Wynonna Earp is cool, her sister is cool, the characters are pretty cool, the demons are cool. There's witches that are cool. There's a lot of different like things that are written into the script that's really, really cool. And also, you know, the actors take it very seriously. It's campy and it sounds kind of like far-fetched and out there, but you know, the characters take it pretty seriously. Like the actors are acting as if this was real. They were that character, and they were in that town, and they were battling these demons, and everything was like real in that situation, in those situations, you know. So I love it when actors really like take the script seriously and take their acting seriously. The acting always comes out really good. The acting never comes out campy or like silly, because you know, like an actor that doesn't believe their role and doesn't play it convincingly and doesn't believe that they are that person, it's obvious that they're acting and reading from a script. They talk like they're acting and reading from the script, and they're being directed. And in this show, in this TV show, you don't have that. You have them. It's a wild story. It's out there, and it's like fantastical, and it's really, really out there. But because it's written seriously and it makes sense, and the actors and the directors and the people making this are taking it very, very seriously, and they're telling like a Wild West demonic fantasy, urban fantasy story. And because they're taking it seriously, it's very convincing, and you feel like you're in that story with everyone else, and it's fun. So if you like westerns, then you'll like it because it's got a lot of western elements in it. But if you don't like westerns, you'll still like it because it's got like, if you like sort of like demonic urban fantasy, or any kind of urban fantasy, or any kind of fantasy with its witchcraft and demons and stuff like that, then you'll like the story. It's pretty cool. It's mostly witchcraft and demons. It's there's magic, there's all kinds of powers. Some of the characters have superpowers. Not superpowers like a superhero, but they have these powers like either they're witchcraft or demonic, or some kind of powers that they don't explain. There's magical artifacts. There's these things that the people are after. There's storylines that keep developing. Like, I've only watched half into the first season, and the storylines have developed and changed, and new characters were introduced, and old characters left, and the story changes and changes and turns from one thing to the next. And what's really cool is it's like the plot kind of unfolds, then it gets played out, then it comes to some kind of conclusion, and then there's some kind of continuation where the plot gets continued and stuff like that. So it's really cool. I remember seeing this on Netflix for the longest time, Wynonna Earp, and I was just like, oh yeah, it's a western. Like, I'm not interested in westerns, you know. But then I was just like, yeah, it's a western, but it's got supernatural, it's got witchcraft, it's got magical powers, it's got demons. I'm like, you know, it's a monster movie, and I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I'll check this out. And after the first like episode, it's obvious that this is a fantasy story, not a western. It's just a fantasy story that happens in the modern Wild West, with old western gunslingers and demons that were alive for hundreds of years, witches that were alive for hundreds of years, things that are going on that become obvious in the story that you didn't know was going on. And the story kind of like unfolds a little by little here and there, and explains a little bit more about who people are and what they're doing and what their part in the story is, and how they further the story and the plot, and how they continue the whole thing, you know, how they continue the story and how they continue what's happening. So, you know, other than it's well written, well made, well acted, it really does. I mean, it was a sci-fi TV series on Sci-Fi Net channel, but it really is very, very good quality. I've seen other sci-fi things, like Merlin was on Sci-Fi, and I thought Merlin was pretty decent also, but this one's a little bit more of a real series, like a Netflix series, than Merlin. Merlin felt like a TV show, but this feels more like a more professional Hollywood story. It doesn't feel like a TV show. It doesn't feel campy and silly, and they don't always have the same plot lines like they did in Merlin. Merlin is like the story's the same every time. There's the same story, there's the same elements, there's the same things happening. The characters are the same, the way they act are exactly the same from episode to episode. But in this one, it's more like a series where just like where things keep unfolding. Every episode is different, and as the story progresses, it becomes more and more involved and more interesting, and there's more to the story as it progresses and becomes more interesting. And the more you watch it, the more you want to watch it, the more you get hooked on it. It's really addictive. It gets you hooked, and it's really something that I would say is definitely like one of those bingeable series that you find on Netflix that, you know, like that's what I love about Netflix. They just have like, they don't put out one episode. They put out a season at a time, which is like 10 hours of content. And you're like, my God, you know, and people just binge it. You are like, yeah, I'll just watch as much of it as I can. You know, they just binge it because it's so addictive. It's so addictive. It's so much fun. The story's so cool. The story's so interesting. You know, it's a blast. You should really check it out. It's definitely something worth watching. Now, it was on Sci-Fi. It's on Netflix. I don't know if it's on any other network or channel or any other way to watch it outside of Netflix. Because with Netflix, it's part of the streaming service of Netflix. But it was originally on Sci-Fi, and I don't know what year that was. But what's interesting is that like it took me a long time to find this show. But come on, they hid it under the guise of a Western. And I was just like, I do want to watch a Western. Like, I'm not a Western liking TV show person, especially like a TV show that's a Western, you know, but they do it so professionally and they do it so well that it's really fantasy. It's Western, and it's like the only Western fantasy I've never, like, there was a Western fantasy called Wild Wild West, but it was silly and campy, and this is a serious story. Like even though there's demons and magic and there's all kinds of like wizardry, the characters in the story are like, the story is serious. It's about, you know, the story's real, it's serious, the characters are involved, and they take the story very seriously. They wrote it very, very well. They wrote it seriously. It's not campy, it's not lighthearted. It's violent, it's gritty, it's fantasy, and people really like, the characters really get into it, the story gets into it. It makes you really like want to binge it and want to just consume it because it makes you want to know what's going to happen next. It's so well made. You know, like stories and like TV shows or series, they're either like addictive or they're completely non-interesting. Anything that's not addictive is like not interesting at all. You know, something that's like casual, it's like I can watch it, but I cannot watch it. It's not really good. Something that's like addictive where I have to see the next episode, I have to see the whole season, I have to see the second season. That's good. That's a good series. This was a little bit, even though a lot of people already said it was a good series, I remember people talking about it, I feel like to me it was a very, very much of a hidden gem where I had no idea that this was going to be a good story, and I'm real happy that it was, because it's like, there are a few good series on Netflix, but this is one of them. This is definitely one of the best. Definitely like something that you want to see on Netflix. So if you don't know what to see on Netflix, check out Wynonna Earp. And I don't even know where the story's going to go or what's going to happen. I didn't even watch the whole first season yet. But I love how it just drags you in, and you just really, really want to, you know, more of the series. You want to know, how is she going to break her curse? What's going to happen with these demons? Are they just going to walk the earth, or are they going to get like sent back to hell? What the next story, what the next plot line is, what the next thing that's going to happen is, because things just keep happening and they're not predictable. Like, you don't know what's going to happen next. It's not predictable, and that makes it interesting because it's not like, you know, like the same story every episode. Like Merlin is good. It's also addictive and you get into it. But the same shit happens all the time in Merlin. Like they just like 50% of it is the same, like every episode is the same, and 50% of it they change it up enough to make it another episode. So it's not a complete copy of the first episode, you know. And this one is more like 10%. Well, that's about 20% of it is the same, meaning the characters and their personalities and what they're after and what they're doing. But even the characters and what is going on with the character changes. The environment changes, like the whole plot line changes. New characters get introduced, old characters leave, and things just move around a lot. So it's like, yeah, there's some similarities, but the story it's because it's the same story, but every episode is different enough that you don't feel like you're watching a replay of the older episodes in the newer episodes, you know? So let me know what you guys are thinking about this series, if you ever seen it, what you think about it, all that in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video later.